when people, they point at China and they say, well, it's China and their control over the narratives and their control and their social credit score system and how they, look at how China locked down during COVID. I mean, we're getting closer to that style of control over the population. And what people need to realize, I think, especially people on the right, the people that you're mentioning are championing this right now, is that, stop for a minute, those of you who are in that group, and think about how the left reacted during COVID. And you thought they were insane. They were willing to give up our rights. They were willing to give up freedoms. They were happy to sign away everything that we believe to be truly American. And they were just saying, well, but this is because of, and it was always for some excuse. And so on the right, we're seeing that same mentality, right? It's that same excuse. Well, but that's because of this, or this is a good thing. And it's like, no, we're literally eroding our freedoms and our democracy. And you're saying it's a good thing, but it's actually not a good thing. These are, droning boats out of Venezuela with no actual evidence. In fact, we know there's no fentanyl coming from Venezuela.
Yeah.
And so doing this, and you might champion it and say, yeah, but we got to get those narco terrorists. Okay. We've always said this will eventually come back to you. That's what always happens. It starts there and it comes here. That's how they get away with this. They are going to be, I mean, they openly talk about going after American citizens and labeling them terrorists and shipping them off to El Salvador. I mean, these are things that the administration is, and then by the time you're shipped off, I mean, what can you do at that point? We could say, well, we're Americans, it's not legal, or okay, good luck fighting it from El Salvador. I mean, that's the point,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, when they come
Um,
and kidnap you with masks on and you're screaming about being an American, I'm sure they're going to listen. I've had people the last couple of days tell me if people would just, when it comes to that particular thing, like say the immigration rounding up, someone said, well, look, if a few Americans get caught up in it, well, it has to happen for us to round up all those bad people. And if you just go along with it instead of this know your rights crap, then
yeah,
everything will be fine. That's where
yeah.
some people are right now.
It's very much the same mentality of what we witnessed during COVID. I think COVID
And
was
right after
really
9/11
stark,
as well.
right? And right after 9/11. I think though COVID is like the most stark example that we can all like really, because it was just so jarring, shocking, and it
Hmm.
happened so quickly. And a lot of these other things happen a little bit more gradually, or it's not so obvious because it's a bunch of little things, right? It's like you
Yeah.
said, the journalists getting kicked out of the Pentagon, and then it's the people being rounded up and sent to El Salvador, or it's the boats that are being bombed outside of Venezuela, or it's the buying of TikTok and Paramount and all of the and CBS News, right? It's like all of these, they're not, it's not as like COVID was one big thing, and we got to see how all of our rights were eroded over one thing and that same one thing. But what's happening is worse because it's so many different avenues, but it's harder for people to spot.
It's
Like they
gradual
can't
too as well.
identify it. It
It's piece by
seems,
piece.
yeah,
Yeah, and I wrote about this in the first article because if you just briefly, if you look at the two sort of guiding forces, Steve Bannon, I know he's not in the White House anymore, but he was there during the first Trump administration. I'm sure him and Trump still keep in touch. They clearly have a relationship and he's
yeah,
influenced Trump a lot. It was his statements and during the first administration where he said, we just have to flood them with shit. We just have to hit them hard, hit the media, hit the Democrats hard. So there's that kind of philosophy coming in. Then you think about what Zuckerberg famously was quoted back all the way in 2009, I think it was, where he said their philosophy was move fast and break things. And that's, that was like the sort of technocrat philosophy of that's the way you're getting things done. So if you combine those things together, just flood them with shit and move fast and break things. It feels like that's, and as well as Trump's own mentor, Roy Cohn, had his own philosophy about how to deal with the media and your enemies. You attack them, you attack, you attack. That was basically what he taught Trump. I think we're seeing the convergence of all those sort of mentalities being used right now, but it's not just about the media or the Democrats. It's just they're barreling forward with everything they want to do, and it's go go go. You can barely keep your head, kind of attuned to everything going on because it's happening so quickly and sort of all over the place. And I also agree with what you said that with COVID, it was one monolithic thing. As weird as it sounds, I find myself yearning for those days because at least at that time, because it was 24/7 on the news, people seemed to be resisting and getting organized
yeah,
and whatever moves they think they needed to make, they were right on it. But now, because things are, while they're happening fast, like I was saying, it's sort of all over the place and people don't recognize this as one monolithic kind of attack again. But digital IDs are still moving forward. They're not vaccine passports anymore, but they're moving forward. Just the other day, Trump's administration, DHS, now announced that it's mandatory for all foreigners coming into the U.S. to be face biometrics, just like the EU started. They've been testing it over the last couple of years, but now it is mandatory. It's supposed to be fully implemented by December 26th of this year. And sure, they start with foreigners first because they say that's going to help with immigration and fraud and this and that. But how long until that is then brought to Americans?
Well, I mean, look at what they're doing in the UK, right? I mean, it's
exactly
all under the guise of, well, we have to stop illegal job, like illegal immigration and jobs. So everybody's going to have a digital ID in the UK. Everybody needs it in order to stop the illegals. And it's like, right now you have basically what's equivalent to a social security card and an ID, and that's not stopping it. So why would a digital ID stop it? You think an employer that wants to hire somebody illegally is going to suddenly, hold on, we have to scan your face here? I mean, they're not going to do that. So it's not going to stop any sort of illegal employment or immigration. It's just a control mechanism that's put on everybody else, law-abiding citizens. And it's interesting to me that it's the same argument. Again, it's that hypocrisy of the argument, right? The same exact people on the right who say, look, if you ban guns and you erode our Second Amendment rights, all you're doing is you're eroding the rights of the law-abiding gun owners, because it's the illegal gun owners who are out there using the guns, doing illegal things with them. They don't care about the law. They're procuring the guns illegally. They're using the guns illegally. That's all against the law already. And so now you're just going to hurt law-abiding citizens. And
exactly.
it's like they forget that exact argument that they've just made. It's like the left during COVID when they were like, my body, my choice. And then it was like suddenly, except with COVID, then you all have to take the jab, right? I mean, it's like everybody forgets
people don't have
fundamental
principles.
argument.
I think that's what it comes down to is a lack of principles. I mean, I was at the No Kings protest a couple weeks ago here in Houston, and I did 4 or 5 interviews of different people, just some man on the street stuff. And they had a lot of great things. They were calling out Trump for this thing and a lot of the things we're talking about here. And then I would kind of softly say, so what would you say to the critics who say, good thing you're standing up for authoritarianism now. Where were you on COVID? And some of them, oh, well, that's different because if I, they just had this whole like, well, my body, my choice and this, but not that other thing. And it's just that I think that's what it all comes down to. And the example you're pointing out as well is that people will stand for one thing when it's their team, because there's still so many people stuck in that team sports politics, left versus right. But then they just, their brain, I don't know if it's cognitive dissonance or just willful ignorance, they choose not to, or they're incapable of just not seeing when their side, quote unquote, is doing it. And that's why those of us who are kind of trying to make sense of all this it feels like we're caught in the middle, because that baton of tyranny is just getting passed back left and right, left and right. And their supporters keep making excuses over and over. And we should not be surprised that here we are in 2025 and Agenda 2030 seems like it's getting closer and closer.
I mean, both sides scare me to death. There's no doubt. Certainly the left during COVID was totally tyrannical, but the right is scaring me to death even more right now, just because of the smaller, they're going unnoticed. Well, I don't know. You know what, Derek? I got to take that back, I think.
It's hard to say, right?
It's hard to say.
We've seen them both be cult-like.
They're right. But I almost think the left is more cult-like right now. I mean, that might change, but there is more infighting on the right. I mean, there's no doubt that the right is having a civil war with each other very prominently. You've got like the Tucker Carlson clan, right, against the super MAGA, just do everything what Trump says clan, right? And there's a real fight going on the right because they don't agree. And I appreciate that about them a lot, that they go at it with each other. The left, on the other hand, didn't really allow for any sort of, I mean, if you dissented with COVID, they kicked you out. I mean, that was it. You were no longer on the left. I mean, you had to go to the right because you just couldn't be here. Whereas the right will just, they fight it out. And there's a lot of critics, there's a lot of these true America first, like Marjorie Taylor Greene, like I said, Tucker Carlson, Matt Gaetz. I mean, a lot of these, Candace Owens, a lot of them that are saying, wait a minute, we're America first. And what the hell's going on here? And we don't like this. And so there's at least that criticism that actually comes from them.
They're just battling against the sort of propped up people like Benny Johnson and some of these others who I personally don't believe are organic in their growth. I mean, maybe it is organic growth because people just want to be told what they, just hear their own biases. But we have to be, very careful online. It's this idea of fifth generation warfare, that the social media networks and the internet itself is the battlefield for our mind. I mean, it's a very true battle that we're dealing with right here. And we've seen, I think it was WikiLeaks recently over the last month showed that certain influencers getting $7,000 per
Yeah.
pro-Israel post and things like that. So it is a really a propaganda battle that we're witnessing. And I think that you're right. There is some criticism on the right. I think the right's also capable of cancel culture in their own way. And
Oh,
obviously we
yeah.
saw that in different ways. So this is why I think people just need to not be aligned with the parties. I mean, you can be conservative, but not be a cult member, and you can be more progressive, left leaning, and not also be a cult member.
Right.
And if you choose to align with those sides, then I think it behooves you, and it's up to you to be willing to call out when you see hypocrisies and you see people turning against those principles. And I think that's what MAGA really needs to contend with right now. And of course the left, but I think the left is kind of, neutered at the moment.
Yeah.
But do people really believe in MAGA, Make America Great Again? Do they really believe in conservatism or constitutional anything? Because I've seen a lot of them say, well, who cares about the Constitution? Trump's doing his job, so it's necessary. Or do you just support Donald Trump? Because they're
Right.
not always they're not necessarily the same thing at all. And I think people got those things confused.
And I want to be clear. I think Trump is the worst president in my lifetime right now, only because of the tools that every other president gave him ahead before him. And
Exactly.
I think after Trump, when AOC is president, she'll be the worst president in my lifetime.
Is that who you think it'll be?
Yeah, I do. I do think
Oh
that
God.
I do think she'll end up being maybe not this next one, but probably the one after that. I think maybe another Republican would win this next time around, but then after that, I think it would be AOC. And I think that she would be the worst president of my lifetime. And it's not because of her or her ideas, but it's because of the tools that like Donald Trump is creating right now to hand her.
Exactly. Whoever's
They just
next is
keep
going to be
handing
the worst
themselves.
president of our lifetime.
Right, because they keep making tools to give them, and they don't ever the problem is, and I think what we hoped for with Trump is we hoped that he would unravel those tools. We hoped that he would dismantle them, rather than wield them. And instead, he's wielding the tools. He's like, "Oh, COVID, they gave us all these great tools. Like, let me go ahead and use them. Now we can go after everybody and do all these
Hmm.
crazy things. And, we can really consolidate all the power and really make sure we can surveil people and really make sure we can control people." And he's creating more tools. He's using the tools that were given to him by Biden, and now he's creating more tools, and he's going to hand those over to AOC. And she's then, and it just keeps getting worse and worse because of this tool creation. And then the next guy doesn't ever. It's just like, they do this every time. It's like when Democrats decided to do the nuclear option with judicial confirmations. They weren't doing it with the Supreme Court, but they were doing it for all the others. And then Republicans warned them and said, "You make this tool, we're going to use it." And then when
Exactly.
Republicans came into power, what they do? They were like, "Well, you gave us the nuclear option, so we're going to use it, but now we're going to use it on Supreme Court justices." And they just keep handing each other tools, and then the next side keeps using it worse than the other, and we
It's
just
almost
keep
like
ending
it's
up.
designed this way.
Right? It feels like that. And I think it's really important to remember when we study history, governments will always try to figure out a way to control us. I mean, in the past,
Yeah.
they used force, right? They would go around, taxation is one big one, force, military force is another, imprisonment is one, right? They use all of these various tools to keep the population afraid and under control. And the population has skyrocketed across the globe. I think in my dad's lifetime, he's a boomer. In his lifetime, like the population of Earth has tripled just in his lifetime alone. So there's clearly a lot more people.
Hmm.
And so they're trying to figure out new ways. And it's the technocracy, right? It's we surveil and control using tech. I mean, that's what they're thinking is how they're going to keep us under control.
Give us the digital tools to distract ourselves and entertain ourselves while they use them to limit our freedoms and keep us fighting. And of course,
Right.
as I said, the internet is a big part of that, keeping us arguing over whatever the trending topic of the week is. And that it's all being done by design. And to your point, just real quick there, I'm still waiting on somebody to go back and repeal the NDA 2011, which allowed indefinite detention of American citizens. But obviously Obama didn't do it. Trump didn't do it the first term. Biden didn't do it. I highly doubt Trump's going to do it. But that's just another example. Obama did that in 2011, going to 2012. National Defense Authorization Act allows for indefinite detention of American citizens. That's on the books now.
Yeah.
And now we're just waiting for the right president to come along who says, you know what? I'm going to use that.
Oh, don't give them ideas, Derek. Derek Broze, co-founder of the Freedom Cell Network. You also have a new mini documentary coming out, Liberation 2030. Tell us about that.
A lot of my work is highly focused on Agenda 2030 and outlining everything we've been discussing here. And I wrote an essay for the Last American Vagabond a couple of years ago, sort of trying to turn that whole thing on its head. Like, we've all heard "you will own nothing and be happy." That comes from a 2016 essay written for the World Economic Forum by this Danish politician. And she described the world of 2030 as she saw it, as they describe it, this alleged utopia. No private property ownership, no personal property, all the things that we talk about. And at that time, I sort of took that essay and said, what if we reimagine what 2030 could look like instead of just buying into their vision? And so I wrote this essay called "Welcome to 2030. I own land, live amongst like-minded people, and life has never been better." And so I took that concept and I wanted to turn it into just a short mini documentary. It's about 8 minutes long, and recap, hey, here's where you'll own nothing to be happy, the Great Reset comes from. But what if we decided to, instead of focusing on that or assuming that these people are going to win and that their vision succeeds, what if we all started putting effort, time, energy, money into creating the vision that we want? And of course, I just outlined my own personal vision, getting land, sort of building my home and growing as much food as possible, these kinds of things. But it's really a call to action to get people to think about that. Like, what would happen if we did put just as much energy that we put into arguing with each other online or voting for politicians or donating to politicians as we do into our actual own lives and into our families, into our local communities? And we have 5 years from now. I mean, I think if you were to take that mentality right now from October 2025 and fast forward to October 2029, and you spent the next 4 years putting energy into your own vision of the future, instead of only, I'm not saying don't pay attention to the world, but instead of only being reactive and reacting to what these people are doing, then you might be in a better place as opposed to just sitting around and doing nothing or hoping politicians are going to save you. So it's just a fun, sort of mini doc that describes their vision and says, well, here's an alternative vision. And whatever your vision is, whether it matches mine or it's something totally different, put your energy into that, put your time into that. And maybe in the end, we'll end up creating the world that we all are after.
I certainly hope so, Derek. And that's what I love about your work, is that you not only give us the doom and gloom, but you also give us the hope,
I'm
which is
trying.
a really great thing. We need more of that for sure. Derek Broze, co-founder of the Freedom Cell Network. Also, where can people find your work? And the new mini doc is coming out when?
Yeah, so thank you for that. So my main website is theconsciousresistance.com. That's where most of my work can be found. And I write articles for the lastamericanvagabond.com. That's where my new article series is at. And Liberation 2030 is currently live right now on the Civil platform, which is, I told you about that a couple months ago, where my Pyramid of Power documentary is at. People can go to civil.com/TCR. And if you want to sign up, $5 a month, and it'll be available to you along with all my other work there. If you choose not to, it'll be available next month, November 21st, for everybody.
Okay. I definitely recommend people just go ahead and sign up and watch the rest of Derek's work, because it is really great educational stuff on a lot of different topics like Epstein, the Great Reset, just a lot of different military industrial complex. There's a lot of different little series you can watch and educate yourself. So Derek Broze, thank you again for being here. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Kim.
Thank you for watching this clip from the full Kim Iversen Show, which you can catch Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern at KimIversonShow.com. It is free for you to watch. Again, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern, KimIversonShow.com. See you there.